Welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast, where we discuss business solutions to help listeners develop and implement action plans for true lean process improvement. I am your host, Patrick Adams. Hello and welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast. My guest today is Stéfany Oliver. Stéfany is driven by her passion for helping people who feel overwhelmed. She's on a mission to help people find flow in their work, flow in their kitchen, and flow in their heart. She lives and teaches the manifesto of being fueled by plants, fueled by perspective, and fueled by prayer. She's a lean management coach by trade, as well as a food creator, a speaker, cookbook author, and inspirational storyteller. On top of all this, she's also the author of the book Staying Flowcused, which we'll talk about today. Welcome to the show, Stéfany.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you on the show, Stéfany. You and I were both together in Japan not that long ago. So I'm curious to hear how you're recovering from the jet lag coming back and just all of the information that it was almost like drinking from a fire hose. We were just, enamored with so much information. So how are you recovering from the trip?
Yeah, that's a great analogy of drinking from the fire hose, because that's certainly what it felt like every day, just absorbing so much of the experiences and so much of the knowledge from everyone. And yeah, it was a lot, I have to say, recovering, especially, when I went on the trip, I was 7 months pregnant. So,
Yes.
it was a lot, but it was truly life-changing, the experiences and seeing and hearing from the people. I had to go through a lot of my pictures to really kind of pinch myself to be like, was I really there? Like, I'm exhausted because the week coming back, I was so exhausted, and it took a good week to just do nothing and like really recover and get back, because the jet lag was that was something else.
That was tough.
But
yeah,
but just going through pictures, going through my notes a few times, and really kind of like reabsorbing everything from a more peaceful brain, I guess, if you could say, you know what I mean? Like, just giving it its due time, and I think that will have to happen just several times over the next few months, just going through everything and having conversations with people who were there and just digesting it together. I think that will be great as well.
Absolutely. Stéfany, what would you say, just, now that we've been back for a good while, what would you say, 2 things or 3 things, a few things that kind of stick out in your mind that you would say were super impactful, or those, really big aha moments, or, however you want to define them. But what would you say would be a few points that were just really impactful for you on the trip?
Yeah, honestly, one of my favorite moments was when we visited the school with the kids. We observed them eating lunch, like serving each other lunch and eating lunch. And there's so many different parts to that were just curated so intentionally to help build the culture of the school, but also, really, when you think about it, Japanese society, right? So from the moment of, just serving each other, having flow embedded in the classroom of where to go to put your tray back or to go and get your food, to the whole concept of taking just enough food that you need, which to me is just respect for self, respect for the body, and just understanding how much food do you need without being wasteful, but also being just overeating, and that whole concept of waste, of overproducing, right? For your own self. So there's just so many lessons there for respect for self, respect for others, and respect for the space. Because when we saw them after they ate lunch, well, they had a nice quick recess, but then they were cleaning the school. And then we people can make assumptions all day about why is Japan so clean, but when you have 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds and you grow up in this school system where there's no janitors and you're literally taking a rag and going on your hand and knees and cleaning the floor, that will make for this value of, I respect the space for myself, but I respect the space for everyone else. So I thought
Right.
those were just so powerful, such powerful lessons.
Yeah, many times we associate 5S or 6S, whatever you use or learn, but we
Yes.
associate that with the Toyota production system. And in reality, it's really a part of Japanese culture. Like they were saying that the kids are taught from an early age to 2S and 3S, their areas. And I thought that was really interesting. That it's definitely a Japanese culture thing, and that is something that helped enable why the Toyota production system was so successful, from a 5S perspective, right? Because it's something that was already embedded in the people. They had been brought up that way. They that's what they know from, being a young child. So
That's it.
pretty amazing. The other
Yeah.
thing that was kind of cool from that was, not the schools not having janitors. The different companies that we went to that had equipment and machinery, they also did not have mechanics or maintenance.
Yes.
And in the same way, the people that were running the equipment were taking care of the equipment themselves, learning as much as they could about the equipment. Some of the leaders even said that during slow times, they break the equipment down and then rebuild it so they can learn as much as they can about it to take care of it themselves. Just like as young children in the schools, they were taking care of the schools themselves.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was cool how that, just replayed over into their adult lives, right?
Yeah. And what a sense of, it's so beautiful. What a sense of ownership that gives, right? That it's like, oh, this is my machine, or this is my classroom, and I really have a job in taking care of it for my benefit, but also for the benefit of others who are using it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Powerful
So
stuff.
powerful.
Well, let's rewind just a little bit, Stéfany, and kind of go back to I introduced you, but I don't know if people really know who you are. So how did you get into lean coaching? What was your, what's your background? What's your story? And how did you get here to where you are today?
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting, because I started learning about lean back in 2016. I came back from my first maternity leave. I became the manager of the HR business transformation team at Statistics Canada. And I had been working in HR business transformation for quite a while. And mostly what I was doing was helping human resources subject matter areas to map their processes and basically tell them where to find efficiencies. Okay. So that's what I used to do. Coming back from mat leave, my team signed us up for an introduction to lean training, a 1-day course. And as soon as I took this course, I was immediately captured and mesmerized by the power of lean thinking, not only in our work life, but also in our day-to-day life. So I started just looking more into it, right? Reading and taking all the training that I could possibly get my hands on, and just learning more and applying those concepts and really exploring that from my work perspective. As now, I was leading this team, and I became more of a coach, where instead of telling people where to find the efficiencies, I was teaching them the way to develop problems, develop their thinking to really, solve the problems to flow that they were seeing, not me telling them what they should be seeing.
Sure.
So as I became a lean coach, I had an opportunity to start doing that full time for the organization, and not just in human resources. So in 2019, that's when I started, and I started growing the team as well, and just helping leaders, helping teams, develop the thinking so that they can see flow everywhere and what disrupts the flow, and then experiment their way to improvement for the benefit and value of Canadians, because I'm in Canada.
Yes,
So
yes, you are.
yeah.
So obviously you're in an administrative space, not, out in production on a manufacturing floor,
Yes.
which, for many people, when they are introduced to lean, obviously it's very easy to see a lot of the tools and the techniques in action and be able to identify waste very easily out on a production floor, when you're making 100 widgets an hour or whatever it
Yep.
is. But you're in the administrative space. You're on the other side of the wall, per se. And so what does flow look like for you, or how do you coach that in the office space, with the people that you work with?
Yeah, it's a great question because it can be very challenging, especially when all the work that you do is all in your mind or in the computer, it's invisible,
Right.
right? So we try to use a lot of visual management tools to really make that flow visible, because once it's visible, then you can actually do something about it, right? And you can create a common understanding as well if multiple people do the same type of work. I would say from a government perspective, one of the challenges is just understanding what the clients value, right? Because oftentimes you're so far removed in your part of the process or in your part of the value stream, you're so far removed from talking directly to the client, which are Canadians,
Sure.
so you really have to start becoming a bit clever on what does that flow actually look like. And oftentimes it's, well, in your part of the process, who are you giving whatever widget you're working on to, right? And then what are they using from it? Because oftentimes what we see is they're using maybe 50% of it, which means that the other 50%, you're working on it for nothing, right? You're expanding your energy, you're expanding effort, time for nothing. So
Right.
it's really, really, really interesting. And once people are able to see the flow and really understand that concept of, I'm just going to produce what is going to be needed for everyone down the chain, because it really is a chain anyways. It's just, it takes longer in most cases because the widgets could be, it could be like a data set that you're working on for several days,
Sure.
versus like a specific car piece that you're building and it takes you 2 hours each to build, and then it just keeps flowing, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I heard you mention value stream mapping. Is there specific tools that you use in the office to help to the team to identify flow and waste? Is that the one tool, or are there other techniques that you use?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. There's, value stream mapping, process mapping, um, just flow boards in general, right? Just creating a flow board where you see it live. I like to do that a little bit more versus mapping the current state and, identifying problems and whatnot. I find that when you're creating a process flow board and you can see the widgets going, day to day or week to week, then you're able to really tackle the problems that are coming up live.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So what would you say are your current areas of focus in, at home or in the work you're doing, or, wherever it may be? What areas are you currently focused on?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that I'm really passionate about with all the experiences that I've gained so far, and just where God is leading me, really. It's, things like leadership and wellness and what I call optimization, which is really that lean perspective, but not just applied to your day-to-day work, but also in your day-to-day life at home with family and running a home, managing your own home. Yeah.
And you kind of coined this term "flowcused," and I mentioned it earlier with the title of your book. But tell us what that is. Like, what does it mean to be flowcused? Because I really love that word. You and I talked about it when we were in Japan together.
Yeah.
Explain to our listeners a little bit more about like that word "flowcused" and what does it actually mean?
Yeah, and so focused is a word I've been thinking about for a while. It's kind of my cheeky way of saying, you want to be in flow and focused. And when you think about lean in general, you think about managing work as a flow system, right? Where flow is the process of energy moving through that system. It could be that the process or the organization. And you want to be able to flow that with minimal effort, time, resources, etc., right?
Right.
When I think about being focused, I think about managing your day to day as a flow system. So it's the same concept, just applied to from the moment you wake up at night to the moment you lay your head, to go to sleep. And why would we want to manage our day as a flow system is so that we can manage our energy in a much better way. Because really, we are the energy flowing through that day, right? And there are things that come and fuel that energy. And there are things that come and really detract us from bringing our best self to every moment, whether it's at work or at home or, in a social setting or whatnot. And so being focused is really all about managing that day as a flow system so that your energy can go to the right places at the right time.
Right. And I was just thinking while you were explaining that, one of the most important things that I talk to leaders about is their ability to develop, coach, train others. And, one of the things that we talk to leaders about is how can you, pour into someone else's cup if your own cup is empty, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if you just envision that, you have an empty cup, of somebody that reports to you or that you're coaching, and then your cup is empty, right? How are you going to fill them? So, I think this fits in perfectly with what you're talking about with staying focused, and just the mental wellness of leaders and how they need to take care of themselves first, not just in the workplace, but like you're saying, holistically in your entire day, what you're eating, your mental wellness, just everything in general. So let's talk about that for a minute. What about lean and leadership? How do the two, connect with this idea of wellness, whether it be physical wellness, mental wellness? How do all of those meet? How do they come together?
Yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about because I see a big gap in a lot of the coaching for leaders that I do. It doesn't matter what level they are, from team leads to, higher up executives. There's two things that I noticed. One is they are not necessarily taken care of, or they don't necessarily take care of themselves. So when you're
Sure.
talking about the empty cup, their cup is totally empty. And it's sad because they're the ones who, like you said, they're supposed to be taking care of the other people, or their people. And the second thing is we don't teach leaders how to lead.
Mm.
And so that's something that I'm really passionate about, bringing awareness to that and developing. That's part of my next project. So let me not go too far. But to go back to your question, there's such an important link, and I believe that the concept of staying focused can really help with that. In my ebook, I talk about 4 key elements that you need to set limits on in order to ensure a good flow in your day to day.
Mm.
So, for example, one is focus, right? And how much of our focus is just taken away at every minute of our day, right? If we start doing something or even having a conversation with someone, our mind just goes totally elsewhere or to the next thing. There was a Harvard study done that said that 47% of the time we're thinking about something else than we're actually doing.
Wow.
That's a lot. That means that if I'm talking to you, there's a high chance, 47%, that my mind's gonna go, what do I have to cook for dinner tonight? Or, what's my next meeting or my next task? Meanwhile, staying focused is all about, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna put limits on everything else that's around me and really, really focus, because at the end of the day, it's a sign of respect, right? I'm
Mm.
giving you my attention, and it's not just respect for you, but it's respect for me as well, because I'm choosing to do this.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick. So sorry to interrupt this episode of the Lean Solutions podcast, but I have an important question. Are you tired of the old ways of doing business? Feeling overwhelmed by inefficiencies and wasted resources? It's time to transform your approach and embrace the power of lean methodology. Welcome to our revolutionary Lean Solutions Academy with courses on lean methodology. Whether you're a seasoned executive or just starting out, our courses are designed to equip you with the knowledge and skills that you need to streamline your operations and maximize your success. Our courses are packed with actionable strategies and real-world examples to help you apply lean principles to your own business. You'll learn how to optimize your workflows, reduce lead times, and deliver value to your customers more efficiently. From value stream mapping to 5S methodology, Six Sigma courses, Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt, Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, we cover all the essential tools and techniques used in Lean. You'll gain a deep understanding of waste identification, continuous improvement, and problem-solving methodologies. Our online platform allows you the flexibility to learn at your own pace from anywhere in the world. With high-quality video lessons, interactive quizzes, and downloadable resources, you'll have everything that you need to succeed. By enrolling in our Lean courses, you gain a competitive edge, increasing your operational efficiency and unlocking your business's true potential. Join the ranks of successful change agents who have embraced Lean and revolutionized their organizations. Enroll today and you'll get $100 off your first course, which practically pays for any of our e-learning courses. We want to make it so easy for you to jumpstart your Lean journey. Don't miss out on this incredible offer. Visit our website now and claim your discount at www.findleansolutions.com/academy. Now, back to the show. So true. Yeah. And that was respect was a big topic that we talked about when we were in Japan as well. And I just remember, seeing those leaders and, again, when they were interacting with their team members, it was interesting because the president of the company was wearing the same uniform as the people that were running the equipment. And, he was spending a large majority of his time, out at the Gemba. When he was interacting with his team members, he would, the level of respect was just amazing. And obviously, in order to have that, he has to be completely 100% in that conversation. I think we heard this multiple times, but big eyes, big ears, small mouth, right?
Yeah.
And again, in order to do that, you have to be very focused. And in order to be focused like that, you have to have your mental wellness has to be in check. Your physical wellness has to be in check, right? If you're stressed out, if there's anxiety, if you're not physically, in the moment, I mean, then your mind, your body, everything is not there and focused in the conversation, which again, like you said, could come across to be disrespectful or, not focused, however you want to say it. But no, that's a really great point. So what would be your recommendation for leaders that are listening in right now and that maybe feel like they're in that place right now? What would be, where do they start? Like, what's step one for someone who's listening and says, yeah, that's me. I haven't been taking care of myself, or I got things going on and I want to be focused. I want to be in 100% full respect with my team members when I'm talking with them. What would be your recommendation to them?
Yeah, my recommendation is really digging deep into knowing yourself, right? Knowing what you need in order to be focused, in order to be fueled so that your energy is there, so that your cup is full, and know what distracts you. So it's a bit like, when you're doing process mapping and you're looking for the interruptions to flow, well, look for the interruptions to your flow in a day-to-day. What are some of the things that really come and suck that energy? And what are some of the things that really come and fuel you? and make sure that you set limits around the things that are coming in and disrupting your energy. Either eliminate them altogether or set some limits on them, and make sure that you have the time for those things that fuel you. So I love to use the example of food, because I'm a food creator. I also published a cookbook early in the pandemic, and food is something that's universal, um, and being fueled by plants, as I like to call it, is really important for me. It's something that I determined and experienced that I need it. So I put limits around everything else. Yes, am I tempted to eat something that I shouldn't sometimes? Of course. But I know that and sometimes I do, it's not always perfect, but most of the time I really stick to what I know I need in order for my mental clarity, my energy, all of my gut to feel really, really good, so that my cup can be full, so that I can pour into my team members, my family, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things I do is I have my morning shake and some fruits, and that's how I start my day. And that's like what's the word, non-negotiable. Right? It
Yeah.
has to start that way, because I know if I don't, then there's a lot of things that will come and disrupt the flow of energy that I can bring to the people around me.
So powerful. And that's all, we talk a lot about leader standard work and what are your
Yeah.
non-negotiables, right? And that for
Yes.
you, that's your non-negotiable. The result of that is going to be mental clarity, and that you're going to be in the moment with your team members. So I love that. I was thinking about my son. He runs track for a local university, and in the last month or two, he's been pushing H2O for like no one's business. And he's just really drinking a ton of water. And he said to me yesterday, he said, it's just crazy to me how much better that I feel, how much more clarity that I have in my mind, and just how much, better that I feel every day now that I'm just going and doing my day-to-day stuff, and obviously training for him. But it's crazy how, obviously we all know this. We know that if you're eating healthy, if you're pushing the right fluids, if that it will give you better clarity and better focus. But Stéfany, why don't people do it? We know that. If we know that, why? Because I'm going to be the first one to admit that I'm not always the healthiest when it comes to pushing the right fluids and eating the right food. So why is that? Why do you think that people just don't do what they know they should do?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. I think first, people forget. It's very easy to forget, right? If you don't have, like, I love how you mentioned leader standard work in your non-negotiables, because basically the whole concept of staying focused is like leader standard work for your life, right? So if you don't have it visual and it's in your face, unless there are really, really, really ingrained habits, you're going to forget. And you're going to forget especially when there are harder times, right? You're going through a hard time, in your family or at work. You're going through stress. Maybe a family member is ill or has passed away. You're going on a trip and you're coming back. All of those things come and kind of disrupt that flow that you had. And if we think about it, we're honest with ourselves, how long did it take us coming back from Japan to get back into a routine? I'm still not there. You know what I mean? Like, I had a really solid, the bigger pieces are there, but there are some things I'm still struggling with. I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I used to do before? And we were just gone for 11 days, so we forget. So if it's not visual and in our face, and we're not really intentional about it, we're going to forget, and then it will be really hard to get back into it. And how often do we just go, oh, I used to do that and it was good for me and I enjoyed it, but what happened? right?
Mm,
Something came to disrupt that flow. And again, oftentimes they are like stressful times, and it doesn't take much to derail us. The other
right.
thing is just a lack of discipline in general, right? Discipline and intentionality. It's hard. It's really hard. But once you know, I think that's the key. Once you know, you have that awareness. How do you make it happen very, very consistently? How do you build that discipline so that you can continue doing it and not allow anything to come and distract? It's okay to allow it for a little bit. Of course, if you're going through stressful times and whatnot, but how do you get back to it quickly is the question, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That also it makes me think about a topic that you mentioned earlier around uh, organizations that are not training new leaders how to be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So many people are promoted into positions because they were really good at the work that they were doing. And then they're promoted because they did really well at whatever, running a piece of equipment or, being reducing turnover in their organization from an HR perspective, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
They were promoted into a leadership position, but they've never led. They've never been given training or developed as a leader or a coach. And what we're talking about with leader standard work, there are certain non-negotiables, things that leaders must do in order to develop the right culture in their team and in their organization. And just by following, a structured way to follow and instill certain habits into your daily, weekly schedule,
Mm-hmm.
that can be a great way to start for some young leaders or people who have just been promoted into leadership positions. But Stéfany, what would you say would be a couple other things that maybe could be built into someone's leader standard work? A new leader or somebody who's just been promoted into a leadership position who needs to learn or develop themselves as a leader. Any recommendations on a couple items that they could do on a regular basis that could be built into their leader standard work to help them be a better leader?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the first, I think, non-negotiable is go spend time at the Gemba, right? Go spend
Mhm.
time with your people, which,
Yeah.
in my area, in government and knowledge work, it seems to be a very daunting task, but it doesn't have to be, because it can just be if you huddle with your team every day, you're going to the Gemba. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yes.
talking to them, you're hearing from them about what problems they're facing in their day to day. So it doesn't have to be so daunting as share your screen and show me how you do this, especially when you're first starting out. There's this sense of like fear that the other person's going to think, we're micromanaging or something like
Mhm.
that. But
Or that we
anyway,
don't have all the, a lot of people feel like they're failing because they feel like they don't have all the answers. And
yeah,
tell them, like, you don't have to have the answers. Like, you have a team for a reason.
yeah,
You don't have to be the problem solver. Use your team, really
yeah.
seek to understand the challenges and then use your team to work through and find solutions.
That's it. That's it. And so going and spending time with your people, I
Yeah.
think is the most important thing. And we saw that in Japan over and over again by all the leaders at every level. The other thing is I go back to Mr. Yoshino's and Katie's the role of a leader, right? They have three quick things, set the direction, support your employees, and develop yourself. And I
Yes.
remember Mr. Yoshino, when we were in Japan, he said, developing yourself, uh, I'm not going to quote it word for word, but he said something like, developing yourself is a great way to help you gain skills so that you can develop others. And I
Yes.
thought that was really interesting, because when you're able to develop yourself, and I go back to the concept of knowing, right? Knowing what you need as a person. We're all unique. We're all super different. What I need in order to bring flow into my life is going to be completely different from you, Patrick, right? So
Right.
it's very different, and there's different dimensions of health as well that come into play when you think about it, right? There's mental, physical, spiritual, there's also intellectual and social and financial. So there's all these different dimensions of health. So how do you know what you need for each of these in order for you to be, well, to have your cup being full most of the time, right? Let's be real here. Things happen.
Right.
So have our cup be full most of the time so that we can bring our best self to each area. So I
Right.
think going back to that concept of developing yourself is really important. And at the end of the day, that takes time. And I think when we think about leader standard work, I think about how or where does a leader's time and attention and focus need to be, right? I don't think there's a perfect formula of like, I don't know, 50% of your time has to be with your people at the Gemba, and 30% of your time has to be with yourself, developing yourself. I don't think there's a perfect formula for everyone. I think there are some guidelines that are super helpful. But at the end of the day, what do you need to do in order to know yourself, develop yourself, and really focus on, again, your own needs?
Right.
Yeah.
Powerful. I like to use the PDCA cycle for my own personal development as well, right?
Yes.
So it's a cycle, and to your point, there's no perfect formula that works for everyone, but put a plan together, right? What are the areas that you need to develop yourself? What podcast do you need to listen to? What books should you be reading? How much water should you be drinking? What should you be eating? Put a plan together, a structured plan. Be intentional about that, and then do it. Carry it out. Maybe you keep a journal. Check yourself, right? Are you reaching the goals that you set for yourself? Are you improving in different ways? Are you able to pour into other people's cups or not? And if not, obviously your actions are different depending on whether you're meeting your goals or not meeting your goals, or things are working out the way you thought they would. But then go back to your plan, and it's a continuous cycle of intentional activity to continue to develop yourself. So that's what I like to do.
Yes.
But obviously, everyone has their own way. But to your point, Stéfany, just do something that's intentional. Build it into your leader standard work. Put together some structure around it. Whatever you need to do to stay focused, right? That's what we want to do. So
yeah, I think the PDCA cycle is very powerful, both at work and in a home setting, to really get to those improvements and building those habits. In the online program that I developed, I talk about the PDCA cycle a bit. There's a whole module on it. After,
Nice.
I show people how to really think about those 4 key elements, setting limits on them. Okay, what are you going to do now, right? What's your next step? And how
Sure.
can you get there by breaking it down into those chunks of habits. The other thing I wanted to add to what you just said is there's also the element of rest, and let's
Yes.
build that in the PDCA cycle as well, because we forget that rest is such an important part of refueling, right? And really filling up our cup. Because if we're not rested, and that goes physically and mentally, emotionally, all of that, if we're not rested, then it's just not going to happen.
Right. So true. So
Yeah.
true. Rest and reflection, right?
Yes.
Making sure that we're reflecting on what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. Rest is so important. And that is one that I tend to struggle with, because the way my mind works, I'm always just so busy. So I have to be very intentional and be reminded. So I appreciate that you have to take time to stop and rest. So that's super important. Stéfany, what's next for you? What do you have next? Down the road, what are you working on? What are your next plans?
Well, I'm having a baby soon.
Yeah.
Yay! So, 5 weeks until my due date at this point, and really looking forward to that and that shift in our family as well. And so my hope is that, I will be resting a lot and giving priority to rest and just, creating those new habits with the new baby. And from a work perspective, like I mentioned, the things about leadership, those are things that I'm really passionate about, helping leaders fill in that gap. So I'm looking forward to doing more coaching with leaders and helping people, just again in that wellness and optimization realm, helping people to, stay focused in their day to day. Yeah.
Love it. Stéfany, if someone wants to grab a copy of your ebook, Stay Flowcused, where would they go to find it?
They can go online. It's the address is website is go.stephanieoliver.com. So I'll spell it out because it's a different spelling of my name. It's go dot STEFANYOLIVER.com. They can just go there and check it out.
Perfect. Okay, and we'll make sure that we put a link to that in the show notes. So if anyone listening wants to grab a copy of Stéphanie's book, you can go right to the show notes, click on the link, and it'll bring you right to her page there. And Stéfany, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, is that webpage also the way to do that? LinkedIn, or what would you say is the best way to contact you if people have questions?
I'd say connect with me on LinkedIn, Stéfany Oliver. Or Instagram. I'm quite active on Instagram, so Stéfany Oliver Coach. I also have a Facebook page, same thing, Stéfany Oliver Coach with the STEFANY spelling. Perfect. And they can check out my website too, StephanieOliver.com, if they're interested in my cookbook and some other things going on. So yeah. Love it.
Definitely. Well, Stéfany, it's been great to have you on the show, catch up from our time in Japan.
Yeah.
And I look forward to hearing how things go with the new baby. Excited for you and your hubby, who I met in Japan. So yeah. Yes, looking forward to catching back up maybe later this year on how things are going.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Take care, Stéfany.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please give us a review. Thank you so much.